Hi, I just wanted to share something that has encouraged me over the last few days. It's based on a Bible passage, John chapter 21, and I'm going to read that before explaining what I think it means for us today. So, starting from John chapter 21, verse 2. Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathanael, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We'll go with you." They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore. Yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. And Jesus said to them, "Children, do you have any fish?" And they answered him, "No." And he said to them, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. When they got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place, with fish laid out on it, and bread. And Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. And Jesus said to them, "Come and have fish." When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" And he said to them, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he said to him, "Feed my lambs." So when I was praying for the church youth group the other day, God reminded me of this conversation between Jesus and Peter. "Do you love me? Then feed my sheep." And I had thought that God was telling me to take pastoral responsibility for youth. However, as I read from the beginning of the chapter, I realised that there is a great message here of hope for all of us in these uncertain times. With the coronavirus continuing to have an ever greater impact on all of our lives, we are all called to care for one another. The burdens and the fears that we may face, however, could threaten to overwhelm us. Yet I noticed that before Jesus sent Peter out to feed the sheep, he gave him breakfast. You know, I'm a little bit prone to wondering how I got myself into all this mess. Silly me for being born in this time and this place. But actually, if we believe Jeremiah 29:11, that God has good plans for us, then we need to recognise that we are on an assignment from him in this crisis, that he will provide all we need to cope with all that we face. He's not sending us out to feed others without giving us breakfast first. And so, what can we learn from this passage to receive all that God wants to equip us with? Well, first, although the disciples were seasoned fishermen, the outcome of a night's fishing was drastically improved when they followed Jesus' instructions, from empty nets to 153 fish. You know, whatever our skill set, God wants to input into our lives to bring about a better outcome. Secondly, it's clear that the disciples didn't recognize Jesus on the beach. However, there would have been echoes of a similar event in Luke chapter 5 in their minds, perhaps, that gave them a spiritual sensitivity to pay attention to Jesus' voice. You know, the Bible states that followers of Jesus can recognize his voice. However, this isn't passively learnt. We need to spend time in the Bible. We need to spend time praying so that we will become more sensitive to hearing his nudges and responding to them. And thirdly, looking at verse 11, I love how God not only provides them with a miraculously plentiful catch of fish, but he also gives them the capability to bring it in. The nets didn't break. And this speaks of how God's provision is for our enabling and not our breaking. In this season, if you're concerned about how you're going to cope, know that there will be challenges, There will be challenges, but God wants to enable us to see it through. So finally, we could ask, what was the point of this miracle? Jesus didn't need the fish. He already had some cooking on the fire when the boat landed. I think that Jesus simply wanted to encourage the disciples as they entered a new season themselves. Jesus isn't only available for the sick and for those in need. He wants to bring comfort and encouragement to all of us. And perhaps most importantly, in this season, he wants to reveal more of himself to us.